Hello everyone, MrHappy here, and welcome to Mondays with MrHappy, aka MrHappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. So first, for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to some of my other videos, why there hasn't been many videos in the last couple of weeks, I was at TwitchCon 2 weeks ago, and this weekend I was moving into my new apartment. Me and my girlfriend, we've been back and forth. She's been back and forth like 3-4 times. Basically, I made the trip once, and then I've helped them move stuff out of the cars and the vans and stuff into here. So what did I manage to get here so far? The camera. The monitors, my headset, basically what is mandatory for me to stream. Things that I did not get. My desk mic, which by the way, even if I had it, I don't have any place to put it because one of the desks that it was attached to, we literally had a desk on the side that was its only purpose was to act as a mount for said microphone. We don't have that desk anymore. That desk is not something we're keeping because it's an inconvenience other than that one purpose it serves. So even if it was here, I'd still have to use the headset microphone because I don't have a place to put it, and I don't want to put it on the desk itself because I don't have what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. I don't. It's going to be loud and obnoxious with the keyboard. So either way, it's not going to go well, and I don't even think I have the thing to just like just put it down on my desk. So it's going to be this for a while, and so I'm going to probably still keep limiting the amount of videos I make because I want that microphone quality back, or I'm going to go pick up like a Blues Yeti or something. It's something that I feel comfortable propping up because I used to do that with the Blues Yeti. As long as I don't knock things, it should be okay. So that's one thing. On top of that, as you can see, nothing behind me yet because not everything has been moved in its entirety, and so that's gonna be my life for the next week. So don't expect a whole lot, and then after that, I have some plans of what we're gonna be doing for revamping some of the old content on the channel, as well as some of the new content that's going forward, including a few new games that are coming out, including a few new streams and video ideas that I want to do going through November itself. So one last thing before we go into the first Q&A, we want to shout out our sponsors. I keep meaning to do this at the beginning of the videos, and I keep not doing them because other things are happening in my life, and I talk about those at the beginning. But let's do them at the beginning of the video this week. So, our weekly sponsors, those on Patreon who are helping to support the movement against hashtag demonetized. Pretty much the only reason why we have the Patreon on top of the rewards people get. We have the 3 tiers, so let's start with the standard tier. We have MrSynestrrr, Argoti, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. For our elite members, those people support a little bit more. We have Ellisan Le'ore, we have Sour Cream and Chives, Velestra of Famfrit, Kurioshi, and Reckless Tea Party on Cactar. Ignis Fairgun from the Diabolos server, Goetia Valefar of Siren, Jean-Francois Themacholuis, Hersh Fersh of Faerie, Phoenix Down Free Company on Goblin, Serren from Zodiark, and Renoit Chikara. And then we have our premium members who have been awesome, and we've had more and more of them as the last couple of months have gone on. We have Krovos Moonscar, we have Naku Neame of Balmung, we have Ira and Avon Blanc Free Company on Zodiark, Jenova Odin on Tomberry, Private Mikey, Obai Del Shamsi, Spike, Nadi and Kurasame, Rudy Rudiger, TinColossus, Khuja Cross of the Jenova server, Ahmed Kurenai Oni, Abdullah, Killer Hackman, Raul Jr, Darklight2013, Arthur Romeo Gaming Bishop, and Kiltastic Jones. So thank you, all of you who have been supporting hashtag demonetized or supporting the movement against it by supporting the channel to make sure we don't have to hold off any content just because we're waiting for it to get monetized. So we can, no matter if it's demonetized, monetized, doesn't matter. It gets posted as soon as it's supposed to, and there's never going to be a delay on that content. So with that out of the way, let's actually get to the title of the video and do a Q&A. My central air in the new apartment just kicked in, and that's the perfect time to actually start answering the question. And oh my word, there's a lot of text. Okay, what's the question? Greetings, MrHappy. Hope your week has been good. Quick recommendation. Valkyrie Prime is good, but Hysteria could be really... Yeah, dude, I'm not worried about it. I've barely done anything yet. I'm going to collect 1,000,000 frames. I'm not worried about anything. I love Valkyrie Prime for Hysteria. I like it because it's limited to melee, so that. So, Monk, since I asked why I don't like it as much, and you said go play it, you're not a high enough level, you're right, it did get better. Not enough for it to be my go-to, but I'd say unless Dragoon does something to blow my mind, I'm sitting comfortably at number 2. That said, is there a point to Purification? Purification is for AoE TP regeneration, so if you're doing large AoE pulls, Purification acts as a secondary means of of restoring TP. Form Shift you should be using before every encounter to start an encounter with a Coral Stance ability. Most people, depending on how long the enemy will be alive, will go with Demolish. As long as you're fighting the boss, you won't use it, but at any point if a boss becomes untargetable, there's no ads to hit, or you're at the start of a fight, you want to be using it to make sure you can keep up your Grease Lightning stacks as soon as an enemy becomes available, or start generating them with your very first global cooldown. As for Fist of Wind, nobody knows. It's there. Wind Tackle's not worth it, so no. Fist of Wind is actually not worth anything as far as I'm concerned. So, there's not been a question yet. Well, I guess kind of the Monk one is what is the point of those abilities, but looks like we actually have at the bottom here. Why the hell is there a limit on Beast Tribe quests? So I can tell you right now the reason there's a limit on Beast Tribe quests is to arbitrarily time you to make you spend more time on the game. If you have to log in every day to complete Beast Tribe quests, you're more likely to keep your subscription through its next cycle because you're in the middle of actually accomplishing something. That doesn't work for everyone, but I can almost guarantee you it's because they know that if there wasn't a limit, that you'd just burn through them all in a day, and then you'd be done with it because they're very, very basic quests. So that's the reason. It's an arbitrary time sink into the game that makes you play the game longer by making you log in daily. That's got to be it. That's got to be the reason. As for why there's a limit to 12 per day, it's because if you can't do all of them and you're someone who has, doesn't caught up, now you have all these extra days to work on your Beast Tribes and you stay subbed longer. I'm telling you, that's the reason. It's because there's so many Beast Tribes. If you only can do 12 a day, you can start working on some, you'll get them done, but then you still got to spend some more time working on the other ones, and there you go. That's it. That's what it's got to be. All right, number 2. Hi. Hey, do you believe Square Enix will add Belias? Belias is kind of an interesting one because of the Summoner quest line. That being said, I mean, I don't see any reason that it would stop them. It depends on. We really haven't learned how closely the Asians and the Espers or the Lokavi are working with each other. Like, we don't know exactly how involved the Asians are. We have to assume they're very involved, especially considering that the Asians and their names are very Evolution in lore in the first place. That being said, that's going to be a large portion of it. Considering we only saw a portion of Belias's power, it's very possible we see the full extent of Belias's power in the 24-man raid, because they're going to make us fight a bunch of Lokavi, and I'd be kind of surprised if some of the more basic ones don't show up there. Number 3, Guten Tag, Herr Frolic. Ich hoffe... Good day, Mr. Happy. I hope you're alright. I hope you're alright, too. I was gonna fucking choke trying to actually read it, so I decided to stop. A friend of mine wants to join the game, and she wants to play Samurai. What are the exact requirements? Level 50. That's it. That's it. You can't buy a jump potion for Samurai, but if you buy a jump potion, you are now qualified to play Samurai because you're level 60 and 50. That's it. There you go. That's all you need to know. Planning on doing job versus? I am, but obviously with the situation going on right here, where it's going to sound like this if I record the video now, yeah, it's got to wait a little bit. It's definitely got to wait a little bit. You do also need access to Ul'dah. That's a good point. My Twitch chat brought that up. If you start in Limsa, you don't have access to Ul'dah. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, I will be doing those once this is done. Alright, number 4. Hey, Mr. Happy. This question is a bit long-ish and thinky, so apologize I have to put a TLDR at the bottom. I'm going to read the TLDR first, because I might be able to do it without the context. Given that escalation and fight difficulty is inevitable, are you worried about Ultimate getting out of hand and killing the top-end rating scene like Mythic rating has for WoW? I don't think the top-end rating scene has died in WoW. I see people talk about Mythic all the time. And I need to see people who aren't hardcore doing Mythic. Like, Towley loves raiding, but he's not like a world first like hardcore raider. He just does it, and then like when he clears it, he clears it. But he still does it. Like, there's plenty of people who are in that range for Mythic. It's just a little tougher because it's locked to 20 people. To be fair, the hardcore stuff before was locked to however many, 10, 25, depending on the tier and what time frame we're talking about and all that other stuff. But now I kind of want to read the context. I love the concept behind Ultimate Fight. My concern is that increasingly stratifying the content. Oh man, this is such weird wording. The problem is that in order to better engage top raiders, devs have to make increasingly, so basically it's the constant need for it to be harder. Most hardcore raiders don't need the next fight to be harder than the last fight. If it's the immediate next fight, it's a little disappointing, which is why a lot of people hate the transition from like 04 Savage to then, let's say, 05 Savage, or when you go from the end of the last tier to the beginning of the next tier, there's always like a slight degree of like, you're not really satisfied because of the immediate previous challenge, but all of the final challenge bosses and ultimate, they're kind of, you have to treat them as different entities. I wouldn't say that Mythic for WoW has necessarily gotten to the point where all their fights have been harder, like one after the next. I remember Ragnaros, if we're going back to, let's go back to Cataclysm for this. You had Ragnaros on Heroic at the time. He was a nightmare, one of the hardest fights they've ever made. Then Deathwing, he was considered like way easier and like kind of an underwhelming version of a fight, and people were a little bit upset about that, but that didn't stop them. There have been bosses after that Deathwing who have been easier than Ragnaros and easier than Lich King, and obviously going way back easier than the 40-man days, which were only tough because you had 15 to 20 idiots you had to carry through 40-man raids. So I don't actually think that's the case. I think people want fights like this, but they don't need the next ultimate or the next raid tier to be harder than it. I do know that doing Omega after doing Ultimate is not as fun of an experience, but with item level scaling at the beginning of a raid tier, it should feel a lot better, and the satisfaction of actually clearing and solving the puzzle for an encounter should be okay. So no, I don't think it's actually going to be a problem. Alright, number 5. Buenos dias, Senor Feliz. Buenos dias. I've got to ask you about a particular take that's been floating around the raiding community, discussed in Frosty's latest podcast. Are Savage raids now becoming the domain of mid-core content to be able to be cleared in the Party Finder, while the traditionally hardcore bleeding-edge content is strictly the domain of Ultimate? If we're talking about the core community of Final Fantasy XIV, Savage is still, to the hardcore, Savage looks like mid-core. To everyone else, Savage looks like Savage. I think that's the best way to put it. The vast majority of players cannot approach it in content with completely random other people. Whether that be because they are not interested in difficult content, whether that be because they have anxiety issues, whether that be because they're not skilled enough, whatever it may be. 99% of the community looks at Savage as Savage. And then you have like that, I guess you technically have like that 5% that's like good enough to do Savage, but like not good enough to do Ultimate, but they kind of just complain all the time, like there's nothing for them to do. As you have that weird, like, in-between kind of thing between the 1% and the, I guess, the other 90, the other 93%, because you have the 5% in between. So, no, I don't think so, because ultimately, the race itself at the beginning, or the completion of new content, is always, like I just said, it's more about that satisfactory and the number of people it satisfies versus just what the 1% thinks about one encounter versus the rest of the encounters that are available in the game. To push yourself to the absolute limit, Ultimate will do that. To beat new fights still pushes you to a point, just not to your absolute limit like Ultimate is going to do. Yeah, I don't know why I said 93. I was like 93 plus 5 plus 1, yeah, 100. I don't know. This is why I don't do math in YouTube videos or on live streams, by the way. And yeah, if future raids of Primals were to be as easy as Shinryu and Delta Skip, while unending style fights be the refuge for the World First. I mean, World First, keep in mind, beating 4 encounters and completely solving those to beat them as quick as possible, that's a race. Regardless of its exact difficulty in comparison to other content, that's a race. Because you have to prove you're the best and the fastest at figuring out these puzzles. And that's ultimately what encounters are. They're puzzles that deal damage. I really don't know what better way to do it. But I don't see it being a problem, because so few people, a lot of people talk about Ultimate, very few people do it. So I think it's more about the number of people who complete Savage content, and that being kind of what they consider to be, hardcore content, versus the 1% that need this challenge to get that satisfaction. Alright, number 6. Hey, Haps, hope LA is treating you better than San Diego. South Jersey is cooling off nicely. Listen, if there's any part of Jersey that's okay, it's the southern parts. It's just that, that's also where some of the weird stuff happens. But as long as you get away from the beaches, things are normal in South Jersey. I was wondering if it would kill the game if they just did away with the weekly cap. Yeah, all the casual players would probably find enough time in a week to clear everything and to get all their tomestones and then be done. Or the people who, you don't even have to be necessarily casual, you need to just have a little bit more spare time and you'll automatically be there. Is Aloha in here? Is Aloha in here? I feel like I just heard Aloha. Either that or he's... Oh no, never mind. There's something under the door that I just noticed. Thanks, babe. No. Yeah, I think it would be pretty bad if they actually undid the cap permanently for the vast majority of players. Because what ends up happening is the people who don't have enough time complain that they don't have enough time, and they complain even when there is a cap. If there's no cap, they're going to feel even more behind. And then the people who do go out of their way and cap it, which, by the way, you barely even need to think about capping tomestones anymore, they're going to get it all done and then say, well, I have nothing else to log in for. That's why arbitrary time gates are regularly implemented into MMOs nowadays. Because if you give people the free time to do it, they'll do it. I mean, you see how crazy people get over MMO expansions or patches or anything. People look to gorge themselves as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and then complain. I mean, that's just kind of how MMOs work at this point. But one of the big things about tomestones is you don't even really have to think about capping them if you're someone who plays with, like, moderate frequency now, because there's just, like, everything gives tomestones. Everything. Rowena, I don't know how she's not going out of business. There's so many of them because she's buying them all from us, but I'm surprised their market value hasn't decreased. So, yeah, that's what I think. Alright, number 7. Hey guy, what is the point of elemental material? Well, if you're to believe what's being said about Ultimate, for Ultimate, get that fire material, yo. It's literally just for gambling, as far as I'm concerned. There's a materia gambler over in Central Thanalan, also for spirit bonding. But basically, you can meld materia to gear, and when you spirit bond it, if it has materia, it increases the rate at which it spirit bonds. For crafting and gathering, that's pretty useful. For anything else, most people just take them over to Central Thanalan and gamble them and hope to get other materia. You know, that's about it. Would that meld defense really make a difference to opponents like Shinryu? So this was tested a long time ago, the effectiveness of elemental materia, and it was found to be basically inconsequential, meaningless. But I don't know if there's been new research, but people are trying to talk about being like 8% mitigation versus 12% mitigation against specific damage types, and ultimately, no, don't bother. Ultimately, no, don't bother. Am I missing something? What's the reason they sell so high? They sell so high because people gamble them. That's actually the main reason, is because people buy them to go gamble them. And people know that, so people jack up the prices. So if they want to gamble, they're going to pay for it if they're not bringing their own materia. Alright, number 8. Hey, Happy. First timers, there's a complete new monk skill which you can create by yourself. Oh, dude, honestly, great idea. We're going to call it Tackle Mastery, right? And it's going to turn Fist of Fire. It's going to turn your tackle into slightly stronger tackle. The Earth one's going to knock back, and the Wind one you get 2. That way you can use it in any situation. Original and totally useful. Me and a friend are doing every content together, which is pretty fun for us, but we've never been raiders. We have the potential of clearing content, but we can't find a static. Practicing via the Party Finder is annoying since people leave after a few wipes. But what is the best way to learn the mechanics to practice for raids? Honestly, Party Finder is what most people do nowadays. Like, I know it sounds shitty, but unless you have 7 other people, obviously with your friend it would be 6 other people, who you can run the content with, who maybe have low expectations of what to accomplish, and then you kind of work your way through it with those people. Other than that, people just go into the Party Finder and they put up with the crap, they put up with the disbands, they put up with the complainers, they put up with it. And when they eventually grow their skill, they join the party eventually that wins, and they get the experience. It takes longer. It's not necessarily as thrilling, but unless you have the ability to make your own raid group of people who have the same expectations and the same skill level as you, that's probably going to end up being your best bet. You can try recruitment threads that are looking for 2 people who are maybe are doing the same thing I'm recommending to you and joining their group. But, I mean, that's it. The only way to do it is to do it. And sometimes it's not a great way to have things run, the way Square Enix kind of encourages us to do it that way, but it's just the way it is. Alright, number 9. Hey, Happy. First time here, so I have a bonus of renaming any item for the duration of 1 patch. I don't even know what I'd want to rename. Oh no, they fixed Step Surge. That was good. That's the only item I could think of, was when it was like Dawn Surge and Step Surge, and like we're like, which is it? And then they finally fixed it. So never mind. I have nothing. My question is in regards to Palace of the Dead. Can you provide any tips on getting the 4200 solo? So, well, if it's solo, go Red Mage, pray to RNGesus, and also get really fucking good at the game. That's it, because 194 is the maximum, and Red Mage is the only job that's actually going to make it all the way to floor 200. Solo. With your free company, go slow, avoid the middle of rooms, try to fight enemies in between rooms, especially because enemies can't spawn there, but they can roam there. Learn different aggro types, because some enemies won't aggro you if you just walk past them as opposed to running past them. They aggro by sound, or if they aggro by sight, learn to walk behind them. So learn how aggro works. Don't go too fast. Take things pretty slow in the later floors. Be very, very careful about your Pomander usage, and make sure to know what the bosses on each of the 10 floors does ahead of time, so you can properly mitigate it or do the mechanics, because one failure is going to screw you, and you don't want that. So definitely make sure that you be careful. As for the drop rate on the Black Pegasus, I don't know. I got it on my first time above floor 150. I don't know what the actual drop rate is, so I couldn't help you with that. But yeah, watch for traps. Don't go run through the middle of the rooms, and don't have everyone run off in different directions. Stay together, stay tight, and communicate. All right, number 10. All right, question number 10. They said that, not me. I'm just reading what they said. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hello. Oh, you're copying me. You're answering me for you. Hey, I just realized that. I'm just going to the next part. 2 technical questions about YouTube Side of Life. 1, do you ever use the schedule video tool? Yeah. Usually when I'm going on trips, if I have content that I've created in advance, I'll just schedule videos for like each day of the weekend, and it's pretty simple. Does it hurt your channel to use it? Sometimes it's kind of annoying, like the subscription box. Sometimes if you do a scheduled release, the subscription box for people doesn't display it as a recent video. It displays it from the time you uploaded it, so it gets lost in people's subscriptions sometimes. But it's not bad. You just have to make sure it's launching at a time of day where maybe it's like earlier in the day, or it's like midday, when people are either on lunch or, you know, just getting up for the day, and then people are more likely to see it. And yeah, it doesn't really, other than that, it's not really that big a deal. But like I said, YouTube's subscription box can sometimes screw that up. So yeah, it sometimes can be worse, but most of the time it ends up being like standard to slightly substandard, but not by a whole lot, if that makes sense. All right, number 11. Hey, Mr. Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You doing all right? It's your first question. First time asking, so I have a bonus of cheesecake from the cheesecake. That's his name, guys. He's a culinarian. He's the cheesecake. Is it the top kek? It must be the top kek. Got 2 questions for you. 1, I started endgame raiding this tier even though I've played since Second Coil Normal Mode came out. I found my first ever static rather quickly, being a white mage main, and we progressed rather quickly when we got to Grand Cross Omega and Neo Art Group dissolved. I want to get back in the raiding scene, but I'm finding a lack of motivation to search. Keep in mind, if you've gotten to Grand Cross Omega, a lot more groups are kind of willing to work with you, even if your old group fell apart, because it means you've gotten through the rest of the raid tier. So, I mean, it's literally just... This is going to be my advice. Whenever it's like, what should I do? Most of the time, it's just to do it. A lot of people look for kind of, hey, you know, this is stopping me or that is stopping me. No, that's not stopping you. You're stopping you. So you know what? We're going full Shia LaBeouf, so just do it. Just look. Just search. Just make it happen. And that's it. You got to take responsibility. I can't do it for you. You got to do it. You got to do it yourself. 2, on a little less serious note, I believe you mentioned you didn't play League of Legends, but you talk about World every week. So the reason why I watch a game I don't play is because I played the game in Season 1, lost my account, and I guess it was hacked because, like, I tried to recover the password and I never got the email, and I tried for days, and I was like, I'm not leveling another account on that game. I started to. I think I have my current account is like level 14, and I know with the complete revamp of the leveling system and all that, like it's probably now a decent time to maybe consider doing it again, but it's been so many years that honestly I don't really have too much of an interest of playing. It's a spectator sport for me at this point, you know what I mean? So that's it. Someone showed it to me. I watched Dyrus play it on own.tv for like 6 months, and I was playing it during those 6 months. Now I don't play it, but I still watch Dyrus, and I still watch the competitive esports scene. I stayed up for I woke up super early for the first ever World Championship where Shusei on Fnatic and his Gragas play. That was a stellar week. I remember that. That was a stellar week. All right, number 12. Hey-o, Haps, just 1 for you. So it's day 4 of Prague and no clears yet. So do you think that people will get more salty hardcore raiders or stop miscoupoing that the devs can't make hard content? I don't think anyone's ever said that they can't make hard content. Anyone who says that hasn't been around for the hard content they have made. To be fair, A4 Savage is not a great example because that one was boring and nobody liked it. So, feels bad, man. That being said, moving on, they've clearly proven they can do it. They've clearly just proven that what matters more to them is that people look at it as achievable, which is why their goal with the creator and their goal with Deltascape was to bring more people into the raid scene, and to also make sure that raids actually felt like they were getting harder over the course of an expansion. So like Deltascape should be easier than the next raid tier, as opposed to all the previous raid tiers where that's been a screw up. In Alexander, it was Gordius was the hardest, Midas was just under that, and then Creator was super easy. For Coil, first Coil was bugged to hell and took 2 months, but it wasn't ultimately that difficult. Second Coil is generally considered to be the hardest of the bunch, excluding Second Coil Savage, which was completely optional in terms of raid progression. And then Final Coil set somewhere in between the two. But it was more mechanically challenging than 1, but in terms of scaling, I mean, it was... So my headset doesn't have any sound coming out of it. So I don't know where I was lost on that question, but because the headset doesn't have any sound, it went into power saving mode and lost the audio. So I'm going to leave that in because it's funny. But to recover my point, they can make the hard content. TLDR, they can make the hard content. They choose not to because most of the community can't do it and it's a waste of resources. But this is the one point where they can. I don't know which you missed there, but that's basically the whole point I was trying to make at that point. Alright, question number 13. I now have music running that you can't hear that'll keep the headset going. That way that doesn't happen. The other problem with using a headset microphone, because most headsets do this power saving thing. I'll probably turn off the power saving, but meh. Hey Haps, I hope a coin flip is okay this time. It's always okay. A question about colors. This is for all the players and a question about colors. I'm going to go with the question about colors. Nice face, by the way. I preferred the 2.0 AoE. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. They were awful. They were awful. Those two, they were awful. You're wrong, okay? Those 2.0 AoE markers were atrocious. Now, to be fair, the 2.1 ones were also good. I really liked those. Then they changed them again, and I still really like them, but you're wrong. 2.0 ones, they were bad. They were awful. They don't deserve to come back. But I do agree that AoE markers, it would be pretty cool if we could determine what colors they looked like. I wouldn't know what color I'm selecting, but I'd at least know that they're different. Alright, number 14. Happy howdy, Mr. Happy. So Diadem. They can make it desirable by turning it into a housing award. Honestly, might as well. The server space is just sitting there. No one's using it. The question's for the Mr. Happy Roulette. Crossover and future. I'll do crossover for this roulette. So we have both 14 Shantoto and 11 crossover Shantoto. What about the other Deciduous Staple Prish? I don't see any point in doing another Final Fantasy 11 crossover, even for the mobile release, which is, you know, at this rate, never going to happen. Who the hell knows when that's going to happen? But, like, she's not even, she was only in one of the 3 Dissidia games, so I wouldn't call Prish a staple. She's a very liked character by a lot of Final Fantasy XI players, but compared to characters like Shantoto, she kind of falls into obscurity outside of the Chains of Promethea storyline until you get into the Rhapsodies of Vana'diel. So I don't see any reason for us to ever have Prish involved in anything, especially because there's no real reason to do another Final Fantasy XI crossover. Alright, number 15. Heya! Hi! Hey! Looking at the success and sheer difficulty of Ultimate, do you think World Forgers will start to prioritize the odd-numbered Ultimate difficulty raids or the even-numbered Savage raids in terms of taking days off from work? That's tough. I've been wondering that myself. I wondered how this Ultimate tier would look because I was like, it's only been 3.5 months. You can't generate enough time off in a year unless your job is a very weird one or it's one where you can call off, or like maybe as a server you could be like, hey, who wants to take my shifts this week or something. But even then, they're gonna eventually just get rid of you if you keep doing that every like 3.5 months. It's a tough call. Do you go for the one that's a race to cover 4 encounters in as quickly as possible time, or do you do the one encounter that may as well be like 10 encounters based on the I guess difficulty of the fight? Like every single trio in the Bahamut phase basically feels like its own encounter when you first see it, and getting past those and then getting to the Grand Octet and then getting further than that, like that, those are basically some of those individual fights or these individual mechanics have more mechanics than entire fights for Savage. I'm looking at you, Owen Savage. So it's a tough call. I think groups will, the hardcore may prioritize Ultimate. The majority of raiders who may be a raid log, they'll prioritize Savage, which is going to be more of the raiders than the raiders that prioritize Ultimate. So it's a mix, but you seem to say world first groups. I think the world first groups might prioritize Ultimate, but we haven't seen it fully unfold yet. If Ultimate ends up taking 2.5 weeks, you can't take 2.5 weeks off. Savage raids, if they take less than a week, you could take maybe 2 or 3 days occasionally off. So again, it's going to come down to what is feasible in terms of progression and world racing, or world progression racing. One of those is more achievable than the other, so that may be the factor that determines it as well. We'll have to wait and see how long Ultimate really takes, and if future Ultimate fights even take as long as this one, because they may not. They may be difficult, but they may not take as long to die as this one does. All right, number 16. Hey, Mr. Happy. Final Sim here. Welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, the weekly Q&A show where we ask you questions and you answer them. Last week, someone asked you about the aesthetic add-ons. What are aesthetic add-ons? So aesthetic add-ons can be things that allow you to customize more of your UI. For example, let's say you wanted all your menus to look like Final Fantasy 1 menus. You know, that would be considered an aesthetic add-on. All your UI elements function exactly the same, but they all look like they belong in like Final Fantasy 1, for example. That's an aesthetic add-on. Some people might consider add-ons that change certain parts of your character as well. Like maybe you have one that allows you to see your, like, it's like a separate glamour system that only works client side, so like nobody else can see it, but you can make your character look exactly the way you want it to. That would also be considered an aesthetic add-on. So it depends. I wouldn't say there's a certain amount, or there are certain types of aesthetic add-ons, because people, the whole point of add-ons is generally people develop new kinds of add-ons all the time, and it's the only limit is what's actually feasible with API, if you even have it available, and what you can actually think to do with it. So I can't really say there's how many types of them there are, but I can say that, it creatively, as many can exist as possible. 2, now you played Ultimate Bahamut, how do you rank its difficulty? Well, they definitely didn't fluff us on the difficulty, because it is absolutely scaled to 340. The damage is great, the healing needed is great, and the contribution for every party member is high. If you do not believe in, if you think healers shouldn't DPS, you actually legit shouldn't even try Ultimate. Like, if you're someone who has that mentality, which is fine if you're going to play the game like that, and, you know, you're just doing the content that isn't, like, cutting edge, whatever. But if you think like that, and you're like, oh, I'll go do Ultimate, you're not going to. I'm telling you right now, if you're not someone who's willing to be the tank who pushes your DPS, or the healer who pushes your DPS, or you're just not someone who pushes yourself in this game at all, you will not complete this encounter. That is the bottom line. That is how cutting edge it's trying to be. It only wants the people who are absolutely willing to push themselves all the way to the edge. And even then, the mechanics are insane. They're all mechanics we've seen before, so we know what they all do individually. But they're basically mechanic vomiting them all on top of us, on top of a super long encounter. So when you die 11 minutes into a fight like this, it can be crippling to your motivation to do it again. But the people who are pushing are, once again, the people who have already, you know, they take 20-hour raiding sessions when a new raid tier comes out. They're people who are already doing this crazy stuff as it is. And so to them, it's, you know, how long can they last? How long can they continue to attempt this, and how far can they get before they're really pushed to the edge? And we'll see, because no one's beaten it yet, so we don't know exactly how far it's pushing people. Is it harder? Mechanically speaking, it's probably harder than things like A3, A4, and A8. But in terms of the way you approach it is very different. A3, A4, and A8, as you gained more gear, the mechanics became easier to deal with, DPS checks became easier to deal with, and the mechanics were feasibly practicable. Getting through the earlier phases and the escalation of the phases functioned a lot different. Onslaughter going into the second phase of A8 Savage, going into Brute Justice, going into Winged Justice, there was an escalation of difficulty there. The escalation of difficulty in Ultimate is a lot higher than that. Twin Tanya is not overly difficult, but the escalation to Nail is significantly more difficult, and the escalation to even the first 30 seconds of the Bahamut part of the encounter is it's exponential as opposed to steady growth. So all of those things combined make for an encounter that is very, very different and very hard to compare to old encounters. I remember, like I said, it took 2 weeks to beat Nail Deus Darnus after beating turn 6, 7, and 8. Will this take 2 weeks? There's a good chance. It's based on coil, and it is super mechanically heavy, which are the encounters that, outside of gear scaling, like A4 Savage, take forever to overcome. So at this point, my 3-day prediction was wrong. I think it's probably going to be the hardest content they've ever done in the game. It's way harder than Second Coil Savage, I can tell you, as someone who did Second Coil Savage at the appropriate item level. But it's on a whole nother level from all those different encounters. Alright, number 17. Ayo, Haps. First time asker, so have a how you doing? How you? No. I thought I asked you how you doing. You doing alright? Doing alright. First time bonus for my continued support. Much appreciated. Pretty simple question. I've been subbed to you on Twitch for quite a while now, but with you being more active with your Patreon and my personal inactivity with Twitch, I've been wondering from which source do you see more of my $5 per month? Dude, way to just let me like throw my. Alright, wait, can we go full sellout right now so I can answer this? Okay. So, which platform, if you put $5 on my name, which platform pays me the most is what you want to know. Well, I can't go into super specifics on that because that would probably be a breach of contract with any of the websites that you have set up. And yes, you do sign contracts whenever you are monetized on a platform. So I won't say exactly. I will say that YouTube, you can't even really give me $5. They got rid of the whole tipping thing. So let's just throw that one out the window. $5 on Patreon, $5 directly into PayPal, or $5 in cheers on Twitch, or a $5 sub on Twitch. So you'll pay more than $5, but the 500 cheers on Twitch of those things is the one that is most likely, because that's a 1-to-1 ratio. One cheer is 1 cent. So 500 cheers is $5. I don't take anything out. The difference is you would be paying off the top. PayPal, you can do the same thing. You can choose to pay for the PayPal fee off the top, which would in that case make it exactly the same. However, once again, however, you can also have me pay it off the top, which means that's a little bit different. The sub, obviously, there's a percentage. Most people know that Twitch kind of operates in different tiers of the way that your subs can work, and it's a whole different thing. Again, once again, we're not going to get into specifics. And Patreon, I don't even know Patreon's exact cut. It's not that big, but those two other options are definitely the two biggest ones. I would say this, though. First of all, monetary support, it's very weird to say this when you do this for a living. Monetary support is never required. I know I do this for a living, but I got into it on YouTube where I earned money just by creating the content, and then you watch the video and then I get paid on the ad. That's the platform I got into this on. Twitch, Patreon, those are more direct. Those are, hey, that platform's not good enough for you, or you want to do more, great, do them. But don't do them based on what's best for me. You do them based on what's most convenient for you. Obviously, you're in a situation where everything is convenient for you, and yes, each of them is their own different website, and they all have different rules and regulations and all that. But you do what's for you, because I'm not here to tell you what to do with your $5. You choose to do what you do with the $5. I just provide the platforms through which, if you choose to use that $5, you have a means. But none of it's ever mandatory, so pick whichever one, because one gives you an emote in the chat, one gives you a bunch of emotes in the chat, one gives you a chat badge, one gives you a shout out in a video. Like, choose whichever one works best for you. And the final question for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week, number 18. What's with all the Spanish, man? I don't speak Spanish. I like it, though, because I get to throw on the accent that is not good at all. Buenos, señor feliz. Señor triste again. May all your Final Fantasy XIV weapon skills become drain tackles. I liked how it stopped being Spanish, and I still put on my sexy voice. That's not a sexy voice. I'll pretend I didn't say that. Anyways, for my question, if Fordola can't control to echo everyone around, would you be able to echo the... No, the Asians are... Oh, I guess technically, yeah. You could, but we can't even do... We can't even do that. The Asians are on a totally different plane when it comes to how the echo works on them. They've mastered it, so odds are they can just straight up block echo flashbacks or things like that. I don't think any of us have ever... We've seen flashbacks with Asians. I don't think we've ever seen the flashback of an Asian. That would be a whole nother story if we could actually see the flashbacks of the Asians themselves, because that would reveal a whole heap and hell of a lot. I'm going to assume their mastery of the echo means you can't see their past. You know, they barely even have a soul in the first place for us to kind of peek into, so it's an entirely different story. But anyway, considering the situation with my microphone and whatnot, I'm going to make that the last question for this week. Like I said, I know that I normally do Twitch questions as well, and last week I didn't do them, but you don't want to hear any more of this fucking microphone, trust me. Like, great microphone for just talking through a headset, not great for YouTube videos. So I may have to find a temporary solution, since I won't have access to that microphone that I was using before for quite some time, unless I go to like an IKEA and buy something, which I may just have to do, to be honest. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap up the video. Shout out to Patreon people at the beginning, so I finally remembered to do it at the beginning. Thank you, everyone, and hopefully I'll have this situation... This whole situation right here. Not just this, just the whole thing. I'll have that solved soon. I'm going to hang out with my Twitch chat for a little bit before I go to edit this video, and then I got to look around to see if there's anything else I need to unpack or move around, because I still have things. Like I have luggage over there, and I have my YouTube Silver Award, and I have a backpack. Like I gotta still look around for stuff like that. But anyway, I will see all of you fine ladies and gentlemen on YouTube for next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy, and those of you on Twitch will hang out for a few more minutes. I will see all of you next time, and until then, take care.